Broads Media.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Schmoozed. This time, we are joined by two guests. We have Riley Cote, former Flyer. Derek Settlemeyer goes by Nasty. It's weird calling you guys by your first names. It's throwing me off big time, but also known as Nasty, Flyers equipment manager for a long time. What's up, fellas? What's happening?
What's going on,
bros?
Look,
You're pumped, and I love it, man.
I am pumped. I put on the headband.
I love the headband. I thought Riggs was coming with a headband today, for God's sakes. I thought he's got his leggings on. He just finished yoga, but you still got to throw the headband on. He's letting the locks grow.
Yeah, man. Can't really see here, but I was thinking about it. I want to show you up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can't come on to my show and then try and one-up me. So I honestly do. I do respect that. So, look, you guys are doing some great things in the Flyers community, in the hockey world with the Nasty Nuckles podcast. So why don't you kind of just give a little brief description on what you guys are doing there and when it drops and where you can find it? Because I love it. I mean, I told you guys this before. I've been keeping up to date with everything you guys are posting, but there was one that hit me different. When I saw Simone Gagne on an episode, the 7-year-old Broads came out of me in my driveway just sniping twine on trash cans. And I just remembered being Simone Gagne, and it's awesome. But just tell a little bit about what's happening.
Nasty and I had this idea going back to last summer. We talked about starting off as more of a Flyer-centric podcast and really kind of just, getting into the life of the player instead of being so analytical and hockey centric. It's just kind of like humanizing the player. We have relationships with these guys. Nasty's worked with them for years. I play with a lot of these guys or played against them or just know them from the Flyers circle. And just, wanted to start a podcast around just, again, humanizing the player, having some fun, telling some stories and shooting the shit.
Can you tell all the stories on there? I'd imagine some of them are PG. Some of them have to be PG.
We've kept it pretty clean to protect the innocent, I guess.
I know you guys are doing some charity stuff as well on September 11th, a ball hockey tournament in Marlton, New Jersey. Can we get a little explanation on what's happening there too?
Yeah, we're super pumped for this. We joined with the National Ball Hockey League, and we have a huge tournament on the 11th of September. At the Marlton rinks. There's 3 rinks. It's gonna be a party. It's gonna be a great day. We got a lot of things planned. Broads, you're joining the lineup, I hope, as long as it works out with your schedule. We haven't released our lineup yet, though, because we don't want people to think we're stacking the team, even though we're stacking the team. And it's just gonna be a great day, Riggs.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's one of a few events we got planned, and just trying to obviously stay in the community and stay in the hockey community. And never done a ball hockey tournament, so before and just have some fun, and bring the network and community together and play a little ball hockey.
I love it too, because I was watching Mighty Ducks the other day, a little D2 while I'm falling asleep, and I'm watching the scene where, first off, in what universe? I don't know the last time you guys checked in on that movie, but is Team USA going to go play ball hockey in the middle of their World Junior Championships to learn things from random people playing with trash cans? But I digress. I was thinking, was there anything better than back in the day where there'd be 2 hockey nets in the middle of the street and a car would come? Car! Move it over to the side. You use the orange Milek ball, and the goalie would have a baseball mitt. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
That's it. That's as classic as it gets, and that's bringing back the roots of most of us played hockey like that. I mean, I certainly did, and I can relate. But that's a little more formal inside of an actual hockey rink. No cars involved here, but that's as raw as it gets. Yeah, hope not. Yeah,
if a car ends up, we're in trouble, boys. It's coming through the boards.
That's amazing. Look, here on Schmooze, sometimes we like to go a little bit in a different direction than just the main topic of Flyers. So, Riley, for you, I want to get into what is it like, all right, coming out of that damn tunnel when there's 20,000 fans screaming at the Wells Fargo Center. And let's say, you know what? You can talk about the game all you want, but I want to know warm-ups, no Bucky, music going. You smack the pucks off the bench. You do a couple quick laps. You hit twine a few times. You're like, let's go, babe. What is that warm up like? Because you know what? I do that in when I'm playing college hockey and there's only maybe 700 fans there before the crowd gets going. I'm like, 700, huh? Let's fucking go. Backhand bar.
Quick back.
Yeah. The
Wet hair.
Well, I would go bubble, right? In college, bubble's the style. Yeah. So I'm rocking the bubble, some good hang off of it. You know what I mean? The flow coming out of the earpieces. Let's go. But what is that like, man? The adrenaline's got to be fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, it's hard to describe that energy. It's something I really haven't experienced since I retired, obviously.
Wait a minute. You're telling me when I shot you a text and said you want to hop on the show, you weren't feeling that type of way?
The adrenaline was flowing, but not quite the same as a few thousand fans and knowing I was probably going to be fighting some meathead on the other side and all the preparation that goes into it, all the coffee and all the Sudafed and all the ramping up and blood flowing. So, yeah, I mean, the warm-ups for me were like, it was like, it's cool to cruise around with the flow blowing back, but like it was more about like mentally preparing for the fight. It was like
I guess
the next set of adrenaline. So that adrenaline was like nothing compared to the adrenaline I was about to experience.
Well, how about this? Because now I feel like an asshole. What about like, not that, look, it's a hell of a role you had, but what about in juniors or something? Maybe when you were a little bit more goal scorer. I mean, what the adrenaline when you weren't thinking about fighting a guy on the other side? Because that does change the perspective.
Oh yeah, no, it was a little bit more of a hot dog approach, right? I mean, you're like the more the goal scorer, the go-to guy, and whatever else, but I don't necessarily think that like my style or my like my vibe going out there and my energy going out there was really any different besides the fact I know I was fighting some mutant on the other side. But like you step out there and you feel like it's like you're on top of the world and like it's an energy you really can't describe, right? I mean, it's like like you're going to play a game you love. There's thousands of people cheering and watching you. Like it's just like. It's hard to really put into words. But then again, when I turned pro and then I was in the Central League, the East Coast League, American League, the crowds got bigger and bigger, and then eventually you're playing the NHL, and it's like it's almost surreal, right? I mean, it's like I'm getting paid to do this, and this is something I've done my whole life, but now it's just like now you feel like the lens and the microscope and everything is right on you, and again, it's a powerful energy, but. It's hard to replicate for sure.
Yeah, I definitely do miss it. I tell you, even my own personal, you know what I mean? Like just that rush of tying up the skate. I'll tell you what, I hate to admit this, boys. I hate to admit this. So my fiance said no hockey bag in the house when we moved here last summer, right? I was like, fine, I get it. It stinks. So I bought this huge container that goes in the backyard underneath our roof. I opened it up for the first time yesterday. Mold, nasty. Like, I'm gonna have to chuck that shit. Luckily, though, I'm connected enough where it's like, yo, boys, so now I'm rocking Columbus Blue Jacket gloves with, maybe like Detroit Red Wings pants and an old pair of skates. Like, I'll be all right. But
you're the played against sports guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's funny when I was growing up because they all played. It's like, hey, I need some free twigs. Of course, the boys would pass down some twigs. Except the only righty we had. He's 6'5", right? So I'm using 190 flex as a 12-year-old, like chopping down the stick. Yeah, it becomes a 300 flex by the time I cut it to where I need it to be. And no wonder why I couldn't fucking score. Like, oh, boys, what's going on here? My shot sucks. But anyway, Nasty, for you, what I want to know, like this, it's just funny from an outsider perspective, right? Like, I think of hockey. There's scouts watching you. You play juniors. You get a college commitment. Like, what the hell is the journey for an equipment manager? Like, are there junior scouts? Like, holy shit, he got that stick at a quick. He was quick on that stick. Like, what's the journey like for an equipment manager?
Well, I'll tell you this. I was more than lucky, very, very fortunate that my dad had done this job, and he went with Mr. Clark down to Florida, start the team in 93, 94, and I was just graduating college, and I was lucky enough to get a job there. So for me, it was easy. It wasn't an easy job, but it was easy getting in. These days, kids are going to school. They're trying to be the equipment guy at college. They're putting a resume out to everyone. guys will start in any league just to try to work their way up, and you hope they do at some point get to that level, because it was such a great ride for me, and I'm a hyper guy anyway. So even warm-ups for me, I was fired up. I used to think I would pay so much money just to take a quick couple laps, like in Montreal, because when you're in Montreal, like the place is half packed already, and they got the music going. They have a couple decent looking chicks there. So I would have gone no Bucky, even though I probably had the bender. I'd probably been out there like this. But and then we went to Vegas. We went to Vegas. Well, when they came into the league, and I'm like, I just want to take warm-ups here. I mean, that place. I've got a video I've got to send you. I changed G's blade. He went around. He's like, change my blade to change it. I put him on the bench. The bass was so loud in there. The blades are moving on the bench. It's unbelievable. I'll send it to you. It's unbelievable. But I used to get pumped up for warm-ups just because the boys were fighting. Let's fucking go. Giving Simmer, jumping up to Simmer, different handshakes with everybody. It's just, they're probably like, hey, pigeon. Get out of the way.
I love that, though.
But I loved it, man.
No, I'm with you. It's funny, like, just sitting here right now, just hanging out, talking about it. Like, when my hockey career ended, I obviously wanted to pursue sports talk radio, and my passion for that took over the same passion that we all had for hockey. So it was an easy transition. Not everyone has that. I got a bunch of buddies that after college maybe played a year out in Europe or whatever, and then they come back, and it's, what do I do now? What is my life? You don't know, because all we knew was hockey, and they're naturally finding their way, which is totally what you need to figure out and whatnot. But like, you start thinking about those moments. The other day I was driving, and where you're like, oh shit, I've been driving for 20 minutes. I've just been kind of staring at the road. And I was thinking about my junior days in the locker room, and some of these, like, wow, like we'll never get those moments back. And nothing in sports radio, with all due respect to what I love, will ever implement that feeling of going out there for a game or going out there. Like, I'll never get that feeling again. It was like sad, but also I was appreciating that I got to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Sad. How am I going to end this on such a sad note? I don't know. Anyway,
I'll back up.
Bros, let me tell you this. You went back to, you're asking Riles about warm-ups in NHL, and he was thinking, he was at the red line policing. I'll never forget him and the Big Earn, Brian McGrattan, going at it all the time. We used to laugh about that, but they would be talking back and forth. But you say, okay, go back to your junior days when you were actually scoring. Bros, if you would have seen this guy's blade the day I met him, he could have played right or left-handed. This is the.
Hey, I was just mimicking Crosby,
man.
Straight play.
No. Easy as the P88 cane. It's nice and simple. You don't got to get too crazy on this.
It was straighter than the P88. Riggs, he didn't.
Did I still have a shaft and a blade at the time?
Yeah, he did. He was the only guy not in a one piece.
I was gonna say, was it a Z bubble or whatever the fuck it was? A Z bubble with a wooden blade or something attached?
It was.
Gun.
It was.
I believe the synergy. Synergy was probably the orange and the JR used to rock the orange synergy, right? Like that was.
It wasn't quite
was
that.
The hot item.
No,
it wasn't
that was fresh out of the Central League, man. What do you expect?
I know. But this blade, I talked about this on one of the shows. I can't remember who we were talking with, but I opened his bag up. I met him as the first day we met. We were in Hartford, Connecticut. He just got there. I waited for him. He got there around lunch, and then he had to go eat lunch, take a nap. So I'm opening up his gear, and then I see the sticks, and I'm like, is he right or left? Like, I'm not sure what we got going here. This one.
We got to go to Elite Prospects to see what's next to his L or R. Right. Check it out.
Then he warms up. I see, okay, he's gonna go lefty with that. You want me to heat that blade up, give her a little bend there? Hey, so the other night, bros, in our men's league game, he's had this stick since 2007. This CCM, it's awful. This thing. He finally breaks it, right? So he comes to the bench. He's not prepared. Bros, he doesn't have a backup. So he takes my backup, and I went to a P28. I'm not sure if you've seen this thing. It's got a hook on it. He's looking at it. Holy cow. A snipe, sick dish. He's like, oh, it's pretty good. I was like, I should have given you that.
First off,
as I met you.
As a pro player, right? Like, to not bring a second stick on the bench is a little premature, is pretty bad. Like, the thing is, though, you mentioned an old shitty stick. When I left college, You see the number 3 sticks, you take them all. I'm going to have these CCM tacks until I'm 90. So if I ever do play and I'm 80 years old out there on the ice, the kids are going to be looking at my CCM new tacks that are, 2 years ago they came out or whatever, these ones I have. They're going to be like, what the hell are you using?
That's right, man.
It's crazy.
That stick, he had the graphics on it. I don't even know. Was it a Reebok stick?
It was Reebok. It was Reebok.
It was a Reebok stick.
And you only gave me a 6-pack when I retired in 2010, man. I've been rocking 6 sticks since then.
Tell me it's the rib core, the one with the holes in it.
He used to use that.
I used the Green Goblin, yeah.
We called it we called it the Green Goblin. That's what we called his stick. Never retaped it. Bro, he wouldn't retape it. But the blade was, I'm like, tape the stick. No, I don't need it. I don't need it.
I don't go every period, but I'm every game.
Well, me too.
Every game. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you never like every 3 months.
It's terrible, man.
Dude.
I'm telling you, man.
That stick for like 3 years, the one I just broke, honestly.
Holy shit.
These hands, man?
Yeah, but I don't care. I'm right, dude, I played 6 minutes a night at D3 NCAA, chipping pucks out of the zone. I'm right there with you, but I'm taping my stick. By the way, Bauer, real quick before we end this bad boy, did you see the new Bauer stick that has a hole in the blade?
Yeah, no. I did see it. Braden Shed tried it for about one period, and I noticed he went back. I have one. Here. Provy broke it first shot, cut it down and gave it to Elvis, my son. But the only thing with that is, I guess you're supposed to tape it, but some people put tape just along the bottom. But the problem is that it's the thing's so big, another blade can go in there. From a stick. Yeah, it's like this. I'll have to show it to you. But the stick you use from Tovey, have you ever seen a Tovey stick, bro?
I don't think so.
So their blade, they have this whole construction where it's there's little holes all throughout the blade, but it's a stiff blade. And their idea behind it is that with the holes in the blade, your speed, like for a slap shot, is more like in a golf swing, the higher speed, the harder you shoot it. And I guess from what the research and development and what they gave me, because I'm trying to get them into my shop, is that every single player that took a shot with their normal stick and that stick, their shot was harder. Now, he used it the other night, and he was like, I don't put tape on this. What am I, Frank Bialois? Because Frankie never taped the stick up, right? And I said, you don't need tape on it. And then he's just lit it up. You should. Did you not, Roz? You loved it.
Yeah, just a little Hattie and a couple apples.
No big deal. I love it.
10-4 win, championship game.
I love it. This is the type of stuff that, look, I run Broads Media, right? It's a one-man show. There's some people behind the scenes that I love and respect, and thank you so much. But for the most part, like, I don't get to shoot the shit. I don't get I don't got the co-workers to hang out with. This brings me back to my times. All right, so let's get into some of the hockey talk here, fellas, because there were some moves with the Philadelphia Flyers, and Chuck Fletcher made a lot of them, and we've been basically saying this phrase for a bunch of years now, let's shake up the core, and I think that's exactly what he did. And when you look at Ryan Ellis, Ristolainen, Keith Yandel, the back end has been definitely solidified with some more veteran presence back there. You get Atkinson, I guess, and one of you guys could take it for a ride early here. When you look at everything from just a broad view to begin with, your initial thoughts on the Flyers' new look.
I think they did a really good job. It's hard sometimes, like on our side of it, knowing the players that left. So there's a part of you like, oh man, I hate to see them go, but I don't think you can argue with what they did. They grabbed Keith Yandel for, under $1 million. I know it's a 1-year deal, but he's a power play guy. He can get points. His defense at sometimes could probably be a little bit better, but I think playing on a better team, I don't think it's going to be an issue. The Atkinson deal, I hate to see Voracek go. He's one of my favorite people. I think people in Philadelphia either love him or hate him. I think he's an unbelievable talent, but sometimes, he's happy about the move. He's happy to get a fresh start, kind of. And Atkinson's he's a pesky little guy that can put the puck in the net. He's a great penalty killer. I think that's a good deal. You gained a little bit of money there too with what Jake was making, and Cam still makes about 5.8, I think, but still you got a little bit of money back in your cap. Ristolainen, his numbers don't look great, but as we could talk about, I don't always agree with all of that stuff. I think this guy might bring something to the table. I'm not sure about first round pick, but because he's only got a year left on his deal, that's just my opinion. Ryan Ellis is a hell of a player. He plays bigger than he is. That's my opinion. And I love the addition of Nate Thompson. He's just that guy. Everyone loves him. He's a great locker room guy, and he brings it every night on the ice. He's physical. And, of course, our big buddy, Sammy Morin. I think it's an important signing. You get him for $750, and he's a presence there. Now you got Reeves in New York. Broads, I know you're not a big fan of the Chuck and the Nucks, but it's sneaking its way back in, but not in a Broad Street Bullies way, but in a, hey, there's not as many cheap shots when you got a guy like Sam on the ice, or in a lineup. And same for Washington, with Tom Wilson and all that. So that's I thought Chuck Fletcher and his staff did a really good job.
Echoing what Nasty's saying, they obviously beefed up the back end as far as offensive talent goes. They had some size back there. With Cam Atkinson, I think that deal needed to happen. I think Jake needed a fresh start, or to go somewhere fresh, get a new fresh body in Philly. I mean, he put up 35 goals one year, 41 another year. So, point for point, it's pretty similar there. Some glue, Nate Thompson, bringing him back, I think is an important piece. They obviously were missing some glue last year. Guy like Sam, first round pick, how many years ago, and never really fully blossomed, but to give him on a second chance after his full-time NHL debut this year. I think he did a pretty damn good job, considering he went into camp last year as a forward and finished off as a defenseman. So I think you got some good elements here. Again, on the back end was struggling last year. I think we talked about this last year, Broads. That was really the eyesore for me, was the back end. And to me, you patched it up here nicely with some points, some size, some veteran leadership. We talked about that, the core leadership. Having some veteran presence back there. So I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You think Chuck Fletcher brings in 4 alternate captains around the league. That was clearly stressed and something that they were looking to do. And that's no knock on what was there, whether it's Claude Giroux being the captain or Sean Couturier, Kevin Hayes wearing the A, whatever the case may be. But it can't hurt. You can never have too many guys that have worn the letter in the room. But I want to get to Ristolainen because that's the controversial one. They do give up a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and Robert Haig, although as a 7th defenseman, you can move around that piece without it being something that I'm worried about losing. Does it change your opinion, I guess, when you hear that 7 other teams would be willing to give a first-round pick? There's a little bit of me, though, that wonders, is that leaked information to make it feel not as bad as what it is, or did 7 teams really offer their first-round pick for Ristolainen?
Yeah,
that's a good question. I mean, I don't know, man. This guy is a first rounder 8 years ago, right? I mean, he was on a shitty ass team for 8 years. His numbers, I mean, offensively, his numbers actually are not bad. Obviously, his plus minus is horrible, but how do you really, make sense of that being on a shitty team? I mean, was that true or not? I don't know. To me, the Flyers are desperate to have a great season this year, and maybe giving up a little more than you want to as a move of, say, desperation, or really just getting the guy you want. Sometimes you give up a little bit more. I don't know, but I think time will tell. But I think on paper, outside the plus minus, his size, his experience, his ability to play the game, I think his attitude towards the game, I like it, but time will tell. I mean, he's a physical player. I mean, and
he's a physical player.
We'll see. But sometimes when you're in desperation mode, I say desperation mode. Obviously, they grabbed a couple other guys there, but he might be a sneaky, risky move that turns well for them. So that's what I'm hopeful for.
And it does matter, too, that he's got 1 year left on his deal, though. I mean, could you imagine if they trade that first-round pick for him and you end up having 1 season of Ristolainen? That's why I wonder. And I'm afraid. See, I'd rather I'd rather admit let's say he's not as good as what we think, because we're all assuming there's going to be a bounce back year, and I would expect that to happen too. But let's say it's not. What if the analytics are right and he stinks? I'd rather let him walk than sign him to a deal to justify making the trade. Maybe you're stuck with an Andy McDonald type of contract.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, exactly. Why would you want to justify your mistake and be stuck with a guy long term? You just got to.
But here's the kicker, though. With Chuck Fletcher, we've seen big contracts and contracts in general in Minnesota. Is there a track record there that should maybe concern the fans of? Look, he's made some mistakes before with contracts, and there's a difference between the players that he signed in Minnesota and HOTLINE. But look, there is something to be said about him. Like, that's admitting you're wrong, and GMs sometimes have a hard time admitting when they're wrong.
Yeah, I agree. It's you don't want to, like you said, if he has a bad year, you just got to let it go. And that's my opinion on it. But hopefully he doesn't. But if he does, you're right, bro. It's like you don't compound the problem by re-signing him because you gave away a first rounder. So hopefully it's all worth it in the end. That's all. Yeah. I guess that's the way they've got to keep a positive attitude and an outlook on it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Trust me, it's not easy. If I'm looking at this, this is aggressive, though. It's crazy. What they did in one offseason, I would say one of these moves. If you just acquired Ryan Ellis, that's a hell of an offseason. You know what I mean? Like, you add a top two pairing guy, that's a big-time move. And then they added Ristolainen, Keith Yandel, Cam Atkinson. They did what one team would do in maybe 3 off seasons in 1 year. And, I like the fact, though, that last season, I would probably prefer 5-on-5 instead of a power play. I wish you could, if in football, if there was let's decline it. I don't even want it. 5-on-5. Now, though, you think about the top end of that blue line. Nasty, I'll ask you, I'll start with you with the power play. You have Yandel, you got Ellis, you got Risto. I thought they shoved Provorov out there by default last year. Maybe you can go in another direction this year at the top of the blue line. You got to get better on special teams.
I think Provorov is a power play guy. That's my opinion. Maybe some don't agree, but I don't know how you don't have your number one defenseman on your power play. That's just me. But you're right. Keith Yandel, the power play was struggling all the way around. I don't think you could say it was because of Provi, it was because of Ghost.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Things just were not working. And they all, Scott Lawton was on our show a few weeks ago, and he was just nothing was working, So I definitely think Ivan Provorov is a power play guy. And then, like you said, you throw in Yandel, Ellis is definitely a guy, and he's just the right shot, and Risto too. He's a second unit power play guy as well. So I think it's going to look way better. On paper, it already does, right? On their power play on the back end, whichever way you slice it. So
yeah, kill a penalty. Opinion. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And look, just to be fair, I don't think Provorov – I think Provorov would be better almost if there was an Ellis out there with him. I think if you try and
100%.
Plug him into that role to be what Ellis is going to be this year, that's where maybe it's a bit overwhelming. And in general, with Giroux and Voracek, I thought sometimes they tried to force that cross-crease pass, and they were always looking for one another which at times was fantastic. But there wasn't enough flow, and maybe adding more guys to that power play lineup, something different, would just help out Provorov as maybe that secondary type of player. But you know what? You mentioned Ghost, and we haven't really touched on him. And Riley, I'll go to you on this one with Ghost and Chuck Fletcher basically sending him out and saying, here's the second, here's the seventh. Ghost, thank you for, and he cleared waivers and whatnot. So you knew that there wasn't this, there weren't a bunch of teams just willing to hop on that deal. But I knew at the time it was a step one of a 3-step process. But, your thoughts on shipping out an offensive-minded guy who probably needed a fresh start too. I could also say had a pretty nice season last year, but they shipped him out and took some draft picks with them too.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, when you look back at this past season, the defense core needed to be upgraded. Yes, he's an offensive guy, but clearly they've filled that void with few offensive guys. So he became replaceable. I think the knock on Ghost is if he's not producing, you know, he could be a detriment. You know, you can really see holes in his game. So, and I love Ghost. You know, I think when he's shooting and he's heads up and he's moving, like he looks like a really attractive player, and he is. But the bottom line is the Flyers can't have another season like they did last year. I think Chuck Fletcher's shelf life, or like as all GMs, shelf life's pretty short, especially if you have a non-playoff season. So he going into this offseason was like, I'm going to do everything I can to be not just a playoff team, but a legitimate contender. And I think these moves prove for him to be saying like, hey, I'm making a statement here. This is the way we're going into the season with some legitimate players, upgraded defense core, and I'm taking a risk here with Risto, and hopefully that this works out. There's always risks involved in being a GM, right? I mean, how many times have you seen a season that you sign a guy and he has a shitty season or whatnot? You make a trade and the trade looks terrible, but that's the nature of the beast. But moving Ghost and replacing him with this, I mean, he needed a fresh start. Maybe some of these other guys need a fresh start. I know Risto for sure needed a fresh start. But now you got a good problem to have on the back end for power play. We're talking about power play. I mean, like you said, Proby was kind of like isolated with Ghost, but now you got competition. So now it's like whoever's going to be showing to be the best, consistent power play guys will be those guys. So it's healthy competition. It's always a good problem to have.
I guess I'm a little nervous here because I'm excited for puck drop without a doubt. Like these moves are every time the Flyers started, I'm always excited because we just love the damn game. But 20 games in, you realize this is sort of the same product, similar than what we've seen. Now this is so fresh and so new. You have so many questions, and you want to see the answers to those questions. And I guess one of my questions and fear is the bottom six forwards. And right now, when you look at the top six, I like what I got. But do you think with JVR, Frost, Lawton, Lindblom, Thompson, aube-kubel, Nasty, what do you think about that bottom six? It's not that I hate it. I don't hate it by any means. But, you talk about Thompson, veteran guy. I love his presence, and he brings the grit, the dirty work. But I always like to look around the league. Youth, speed, young, roll four lines. Can Thompson hang with the young cats, if you will, for another season? Would there be enough point production? If you go back to the year they were one game away from the Eastern Conference Finals, they were heavy on the forecheck. They got a lot of depth scoring. Could you see that still being the case with this bottom six core?
I think last year, just my opinion, if you've got Nolan Patrick and Oscar Lindblom on your fourth line, they're not going to produce for you. I don't think Oscar should be on the fourth line. I think he's at least a third, like at the lowest, a third line guy. The guy can shoot the puck. He can score. Obviously, we know everything that went on with him. He was sick and came back last year. I like Cube I like Cube and his energy. I think Thompson's still an effective player. That's just my opinion. I think he still skates well enough, but he's such a grinder, and he's in your face. And I don't mind that. I don't know who's the other guy's going to be there. And I guess it depends how they set the lines up. JVR, if he's your third line, if he's on your third line and he's going against a lower line against him, I mean, he is a skilled player, and I think he can have a positive effect. But it just, again, last year I felt like line combinations were changing every game. It seemed like, I know we talked about that a couple of times. It's hard to get that chemistry there. Hopefully they figure that out early and can stick with it. And, I'm not a coach, so I don't know I wasn't there either. So I don't know what's going on, but I still think that
my guess is, Nasty, my guess is you're going to see line changed every other shift. I mean, it's not that, look, I don't like that AV does this, but I got a buddy who plays on Columbus right now. Tortorella's not there anymore, but he would say, yeah, you know what? Every other shift, it's something new. Like, is that just the nature of today's game where, sure, AV does it, but Tortorella does it, and this guy does it, and that guy does it, where, hey, let's just throw guys out there and see what happens.
Rouse, I mean,
I think that's becoming more of a thing. It's like right out of the gates, in the first, you give every line a shift, and right out of the gates, like the coach will notice who's going in that first shift or the second shift, and start double shifting him and start putting him and spotting him through another line and moving a guy off the line right out of the gates. It's a message sending thing. It's just kind of going with the energy that you're seeing. I think that's kind of like, I don't want to say call it new school. Old school is just like you just roll the 4 lines, and maybe in the third period you'd like switch a lineup, right? I think the philosophy has changed by just like the old eye test and be like, this guy's definitely going tonight. I want to get this guy out again and get this guy out again. And then you do that with whoever's going, and whoever's not going, you basically, like Tortorella is notorious for this. Like, your first shift, you're not going. You're not going
You're
back up.
No,
you sit there for a long period of time.
Might as well untie your skates. You might as well untie your skates.
I think there's just so much energy and your presence that needs to be solidified right out of the gate. So I think coaches are coaching to that, not so much, I got my 4 lines. I remember I was coaching the Phantoms. We just like have 4 lines, and then we'd come into the coaches room after the second and be like, we got to change the lines. It'd be like, no, it's like, these lines get changed up. Like, it could be first 5 minutes of the game that could be already swapped up. Basically, the coaches is determined who's going and who's not, and we're going to play to that strength right out of the gate. So I think that's kind of the way most coaches, at least these new school coaches, or the way the game is now is played. But I did want to mention just what I do like about all this stuff that we haven't really talked about was like the chemistry within the locker room and the relationships that, Kevin Hayes has a couple of these guys. I know he's like looked at as a leader. He's kind of a glue guy in a sense, where he keeps the room light. I know Yandel and Atkinson are buddies, but that's like, you need to bring in Thompson. Like, to me, like, that's something that you really can't quantify. We'll see if it translates, obviously, but I mean, I like that component where there is some synergy there outside of the locker room, and hopefully that energy translates onto the ice, where, say you don't overly love that bottom 6 forwards, and like you upgraded the decor, so everyone looks better up front. If you make that good first pass and you move the puck up, you're playing out of your end, you're playing away from your net, so everyone can look a little bit better. And at least if those guys don't score on, and if they can at least accept maybe a lesser role and just be consistent defensively. I know Lotz has accepted that role for some time now, and and obviously Nate, and I think JVR be willing to accept that role, and you can score whenever there's opportunity to. But I don't know. I just like what I'm seeing and feeling. But going back to what you originally asked, is just like it's always based on energy. If guy's not going, he's not going to play. It's just there's too much at stake.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I definitely wanted to touch on the group as well, because even Chuck alluded to it, that there was no one having fun last year. You walk in, it was all miserable. And I'm sure we've all experienced that version. I had a team, my first year of juniors, I mean, I still talk to those guys today, and it was a brotherhood. And that was my first year. So that was my rookie year. And that's me going, damn, this is what junior hockey's all about. This is amazing. My second year, I went to a different team. It was the shittiest locker room I've ever had in my life. The coach got fired midway through the year. People hated each other, fights in the locker room. Yeah. And this is literally going from the best group of 25 guys I played with to the worst 25 guys I've ever played with in my life. And the difference of approach of going to the rink every day, seeing one another. I mean, you blocked that shot for my first season. It's let's fucking go, bros. You blocked the shot for the second team. It's no peep. Not one bang of the stick on the bench. Fuck you, asshole. I'm not going to block it next time. That's what I say. So, I mean, you guys all know. I mean,
100%. Yeah, I've been on teams like that. Nasty's been on teams like that. The energy is undeniable. And I think about like Ristolainen's attitude coming to Philly. This guy's going to be like walking on cloud 9, man. Like he already is. Yeah, exactly. He's probably already in Philly, ready to rock, waiting for the face-off.
He's cruising up and down Broad Street right now.
Probably. Think about that. You've been hemmed in Buffalo, not just like the team, the Sabres, but like in Buffalo, with a shitty team for 8 years, and then all of a sudden you get a fresh start on a very attractive team. Like I would be absolutely pumped. And not to mention all these other additions, and again, the glue guys, and having a connection with Hayes and whatever. What I mean? To me, it's like a feel-good story right out of the gates. And I've been guilty for getting ahead of myself before on some of this stuff, but I don't know. I mean, I'm really excited to see what we have working here. So.
Nasty, sure. I got a question for you. I think you'll like this one. I saw Elliot Friedman, who does some Hockey Night in Canada stuff. He put on his 31 Thoughts podcast about Chuck Fletcher doubling down on Alain Vigneault. And I'm just curious your thoughts on, because like I've heard some things about, I've heard some things about maybe some players being rubbed the wrong way or whatever. But I guess here's my thing with this. Here's my thought. Year one of AV, they were one game away from the Eastern Conference Finals. So clearly there was something there. Year two, like people are rubbed the wrong way. But it was such an extreme flip of, wow, there's something here. We're one game away to the Eastern Conference too. Ooh, I don't know how I feel about maybe the message set. The extreme was so, one way or the other in 1 year. Who's to say I can't bounce back again in year three? So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was there obviously half of the year, AB's first year, and it was, the boys were rolling. You saw it. It was great atmosphere. AV was, I really enjoyed working with him and all the new guys were there. Yosi and French Bike is Aubie, as Cube would say, Michelle Terry and the other coaches, obviously Lappy and Dilly. But I wasn't there last year. You could definitely see something was going on. I don't know what, but watching the games, even when we did our post things a couple times, we were like, what the fuck is going on? Like, no one looks happy. The coach doesn't look happy. The players don't look happy. So I can't really speak on what was going on there, but I think with all these moves, kind of changing it up a little bit, but keeping, you still have a lot of your good core guys. I think AV's probably pumping his fist and like, all right, let's readjust our mental state and let's go in here and be positive and have another training camp. Well, I shouldn't say training camp. We didn't do well in training camp as far as wins and losses, but it was a very positive atmosphere, I should say. So I think they bounced back with these moves. How can you not, as a coach, see what your GM's done here to help? And like, here you go, man. This is what you got now. Let's get it going,
Yeah. It's also the nature of the hockey coach, though, right? How many times is Peter Laviolette going to get bounced around after his message runs dry or Tortorella? It's like when you're one of these harder guys, and not that AV, I don't think is on the category of them, because he does seem to have a little bit more of a, player-friendly style than, let's say, Tortorella does or Laviolette. Maybe I'm wrong. It just seems that way from the outside. But regardless, 2 years in is definitely not enough time for that message to run dry, in my opinion. So I'm fascinated from that angle from it. It's just, you do hear that maybe it wasn't as smooth as it should have been in year two from his angle. And it's so bizarre considering how much success and culture there was that was so good in year one. So I'm looking forward to see, how he might adjust as a coach. I appreciate you guys hopping on, and I'll put all your information, by the way, for the Nasty Nuckles YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all that in the description for all the Flyers fans out there. I'll tell you what, with this news in this offseason, when you think about the pecking order, there's no lie here. I break down all Philly sports. Flyers seem to fall on the bottom end in terms of, fans and compared to the Eagles, Sixers, and all. This offseason, I'll give a lot of credit to the Flyers fans who came down this way and checked out all the Flyers content. There was some buzz from Chuck Fletcher, so I'm excited. Yep. So with that said, thank you, fellas, and thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. And I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Schmoozed.